So come to Iran.
No,
we'll
I'm not coming to Iran.
You can visit
come
the country
to London,
and see how awful it is.
You come to London and sit in this studio and we'll do it. Done. Deal.
Professor
Mirandi, I'm going to leave it there.
I've been to London.
I'll leave it there for now.
I've been to London. You've never been to Iran.
I appreciate
Iran, but
I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. If you want to come and have the balls to fly over here and sit right here opposite me, you do it.
Professor Mirandi is back on Piers Morgan, and this time the conversation goes places mainstream media is not prepared to follow. Trump posted that America and Iran were having productive peace talks. Iran said there were no talks. Zero. None. And Mirandi came on and laid out exactly what actually happened. And when you hear the timing of that announcement relative to when the American stock markets opened, you are going to want to sit down. And when Piers tried the Hamas condemnation trap, the same move Western media runs every single time to shut down this conversation. Watch what Mirandi does with it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let's get into it.
The US through Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. He's now denied that any talks have taken place. Joining me from Iran with his verdict is Professor Mirandi from Tehran University. Professor Mirandi, thank you for coming back on Uncensored. Donald Trump posted this morning. I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week, I've instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Donald J. Trump. What is your response to that? Because all the official responses have been that there have been no discussions whatsoever. Is that your understanding?
Yes, there have not been any talks. The reason it is believed here that Trump made this statement was because he was worried about the markets, and he made this statement, I think, an hour before the markets opened on Monday. And of course, these 5 days would end after the markets close on Friday. I think he's also deeply concerned about the fact that Iran said that it will retaliate with great force if these crimes against humanity are carried out, because obviously targeting vital infrastructure that ordinary people use is a crime against humanity. But of course, as usual, there's no outcry in the West, because for the West, we live in the jungle.
Well, I mean, my response to that would be that I think that there's always been an understood red line that you don't go after each other's energy plants. And that line was crossed. I think it was crossed by Israel attacking one of the Iranian power plants. Iran responded in kind, attacking a refinery in Qatar and threatening to do more of that. And we now get to a place where Donald Trump threatened to blow up huge amounts of the Iranian power plants and now appears to have backed down from that, claiming to have had discussions. So this red line is an important one, isn't it? Because it's in nobody's interest in this conflict that Iranians' power plants get destroyed and they respond by taking out all of the neighboring Gulf states' power plants. That would be energy Armageddon.
So, Piers, do you condemn Donald Trump for threatening to take out Iran's critical infrastructure, its vital infrastructure that is targeting 92 million Iranians?
Yes.
Good. We finally agree on something.
I didn't agree with what Israel did in attacking the refinery. I wouldn't agree if America decided to attack more of the power plants. I think in particular you have an issue with the Gulf states, with the desalination plants, both in Iran, but also obviously in all the Gulf states, its neighboring states there, where having spent a lot of time in the Middle East, I know that if you took out the desalination plants, then the ability of the populations of these Gulf states to drink water would very rapidly disappear. And you would potentially have millions of people unable to get to access water, which would be devastating. That's why it's always been a red line. But many red lines have been ripped up, it seems to me, in this war so far. How do you think this ends?
Well, all the red lines were, of course, crossed by the United States. An unprovoked war, murdering 168 little girls on day one in the first strike, murdering the leader, denying that they carried out the strike against the girls, pretending that it was the Iranians. In other words, pretending it was the victims. But of course, this is the 47-year-old history of Iran and the United States. The United States carries out aggression, and it always blames the victim, and the victim is somehow the problem. But I think the war will end in a strategic defeat for Trump. The Iranians are not going to let go until the facts on the ground change and Iran feels assured that this will never happen again. They're going to continue, because we already went through this once. We were negotiating, and Trump was secretly conspiring to attack Iran with Netanyahu 8-9 months ago. Then again, this time around, as we were negotiating, he did the same thing. So we're not going to allow him to walk away, rearm himself, prepare himself, and then launch another attack 6 months from now, a year from now, or 2 years from now.
Okay, but the argument, of course, would come back exactly the same to Iran. And many people will laugh, wryly at your description of Iran as any kind of victim, given its activities in supporting terrorist organizations all over the Middle East for decades, given the repression of its own people and the 47 years this regime has been intact. And you and I have debated that ad infinitum. You're never going to give an inch about any of it. I'm not going to waste more time trying to get you to do now. But in relation to a settlement, the Americans and the Israelis will want exactly the same from Iran. They will say the whole point of why they waged this attack. And look, I don't know what they know, but they say that there was legitimate evidence that Iran had been very rapidly rebuilding its nuclear capability, enriching the uranium to a point where it could create a nuclear bomb, and they could not allow that to happen. And that was against undertakings that Iran had given the international community. So they want the same thing from you that you have just asked for from them. So I ask simply, how does it get resolved?
No, there's no moral equivalence between an evil empire and its victims. There never was moral equivalence. Iran does not have terrorist organizations in the region. Hezbollah, which you call a terrorist organization, was created as a result of the Israeli regime's invasion of Lebanon and the occupation of the capital of the country. It was born to expel this regime that had occupied its country. And in Palestine, all of the resistance organizations were created, every single one, were created as a result of occupation, ethnic cleansing, something that you know quite well, but you want to see otherwise. Or the resistance in Iraq or Afghanistan. You deny the people of these countries agency when a foreign power controls their fate, and then you want to blame Iran for everything that happens. Instead of invading countries and occupying countries and murdering people, the empire should just go home and have normal relations with each country, and then we wouldn't have this sort of conflict.
So do you concede? Do you concede quite happily then that the Iranian regime has supported, both with money and with arms, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas? Are you proud of that?
Yes, why not? They are liberation organizations. Without Hezbollah, the US regime, the Israeli regime, would still be occupying Lebanon. They would still be controlling Lebanon. The same is true in Palestine. By now, they would have ethnically cleansed the entire land of Palestine. Right now, as we speak, you know this as well as I, they are carrying out ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And the West is silent. Not a single Western embassy protests. Why? Because all of the West believes, unofficially, the same thing that the US ambassador does in occupied Palestine. What does he believe? He believes that the Israeli regime has the most moral army in the world, like in Gaza with the genocide, and that if it takes over the entire region, that's fine. This is the unofficial policy of the United States and its European partners. The official policy is something else. So without a doubt, it is the Palestinians who are the victims. It is the Lebanese who are the victims. It is the Yemenis who are victims. And it is the Iraqis who've been victims. And now it's the Iranians who are victims.
Okay.
Your countries are all, you want to portray them as victims, but they go and kidnap presidents in Latin America. They strangle people in Cuba. They destroy Libya and allow slave markets to emerge. And somehow you're always this innocent bystander, and we are the bad guys.
Well, just to be clear, I've never used the word victim about either the United States or Israel. I don't believe them to be victims, but I understand their arguments for why they do what they do. I don't always agree with them, but I understand their arguments. In the same way I listen to your arguments. My question for you, you asked me to condemn the notion of America attacking big power plants in Iran, and I happily did that. I think it would be a terrible mistake because I think Iran would immediately do the same thing to all the neighboring Gulf states, and it would be, as I said, energy Armageddon. Would you condemn the terror attacks committed by 3,000 Hamas terrorists on October the 7th, for example, in return?
We went through that the first time I was on your show, and I said I would condemn them if I were to condemn the French resistance against the Nazis.
Okay, so you don't condemn it, just to be clear. You're equivocating, but you don't condemn it. No. Okay, so look, viewers can make their own minds up. If you can't condemn 3,000 people coming over a border and attacking innocent people who are at a music festival or in their kibbutz or wherever it may be, killing elderly people, young people, kidnapping a baby, kidnapping Holocaust survivors, if you can't find it in yourself to condemn the actions that day by Hamas, people will judge you accordingly. You can be as judgmental as you want against the United States and Israel, and some of the points you make I may agree with. But whereas I'm happy to condemn what would be a grotesque miscalculation if the Americans did attack your power plants, you can't even condemn the murder of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of another 250. And that says a lot about you, Professor Mirandi.
No, actually, I think it says a lot about you because you know better than to say this, but you have to say this. That's how you keep your job.
Why? Who do you think I'm answerable to?
Oh, well, resistance.
Who?
Again,
I own my own business. I own my own channel. I'm answerable to nobody. Who am I answerable to?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who?
So,
well, hang on, who?
The people who keep your show on air.
Who do you think keeps me on air?
Oh, well, you know much better.
Well, spit it out. Say, give me a name.
You don't want me to respond to you. The people that own the people that own the media industry.
Who are you talking about? Who do you think puts me on air?
You know quite well who
Give me
they
a
are.
name.
It is. You don't want me to answer your question.
No, I do. Give me a name. Please give me a name.
You're afraid of my answers.
Give me a name.
Look, Piers. The first time you invited me, you allowed me to talk.
One name of somebody who controls me or tells me what to put on air.
For you. And ever since then, you prevent me from speaking.
Just give me a name.
Because whenever I speak, you have no answer.
Give me a name.
Go and look it up. If you don't know who owns the media outlet that your company works and provides services for, go and look it up.
Sorry, you don't seem to understand what my company is. My company is owned by me.
Yes. In any case, your company that is owned by you uses this format, this platform to speak to me and prevent me from speaking, and you talk over me.
When have I prevented you from speaking? I've had you on multiple times in the last few years.
You never let me talk.
I never prevent you from speaking. So you say that I'm under control by people, but you won't name them. Again, viewers can make their own calculation.
Look it up. Look it up.
Give me a name.
Look them up. I'll send it to you after the show.
Look it up and I'll give you the
name of the people who you work with.
We're uncensored.
I'll look it up after the show and give you the name.
If you think I'm being censored, give me a name.
Why do you invite me if you're afraid of me talking?
Because you are a spokesman for the Iranian regime in Tehran, and therefore your opinions in the middle of a war in Iran against America and Israel are pertinent and relevant.
you're talking nonsense because I'm not a spokesman for anyone, but this is how you like to discredit me. I'm an academic and I teach at the University of Tehran, and I don't get paid for doing this work. I risk my life. Did you know that a verified account on Twitter that has paid partnership is gathering money, $1 million, in order to
Yeah, I
kidnap
saw
me?
that. I thought it was disgusting.
Yes. Do you condemn?
I condemn it, yeah.
Yeah. Do you condemn the owner of Twitter,
Elon Musk? Do you mean
condemn
Elon
it?
Musk? I think Elon Musk
Yes.
should not allow that to be done on his platform.
You
I saw
condemn
it.
it?
I think it's terrible. Yes.
You condemn it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I find it easy. I find it easy to condemn terrible things. You don't.
But people like you who dishonestly say I'm a spokesperson, even though if I were a spokesman, that would not legitimize what they do.
Right.
But by creating this aura that is dishonest, you create an environment where they can get away with these crimes.
Right. Well, just to
And
be
now
clear,
my entire
once
family,
again,
now all
once
of my
again,
loved ones,
once again,
all of my loved
if I may
ones
finish
are
my
deeply
point,
afraid
you asked
because
me,
of the things that you say
Yeah.
and the actions that they take.
fine. You've asked
in
me
any
several
way- in any
times.
case,
You've
let me
asked
get
me.
to Gaza.
you've-
Just let me
if
answer
I may
very
finish.
briefly.
You've asked me several
me get-
times if I condemn various things, and I have immediately
Okay, now
condemned them.
let me
and I've
respond
immediately
to the
condemned
Gaza
them.
issue.
I asked you to condemn
Okay, you
one
condemned
thing,
it.
and it was the Hamas attacks on October
Okay,
the 7th.
let me respond to
and
that.
you chose not
Let me
to
respond.
and liken them to the French resistance. And people,
Yes,
like I
let me
say,
respond to that.
as they do with all our interviews, they will judge
Why don't you let me
according
talk?
to what you say.
You don't want me to answer the question.
You don't answer.
I'll answer. Hamas is a resistance organization.
Okay, you
The
said that
people
before.
in listen for a moment. The people who live in Gaza come from Palestine. They are refugees that were pushed
Right,
into
I asked you if you
Gaza.
condemned it, and you said no. End.
Any
You answered the question.
Listen.
I've got to leave it there, Professor
listen,
Mirandi.
Listen.
You chose not to condemn it, and you chose not to tell me who you think
you
controls
don't
my
want to-
show.
you don't
Viewers
want to
can
hear
make
the
their own
truth.
minds up about your answers, but you cannot say I don't give you a platform, because I regularly do,
no, you don't give
and
a
we don't
platform.
censor anything
this
you
is a
say.
joke.
But I condemn things when I think they're wrong. You don't.
No, you haven't let me speak.
You don't,
let me
because
speak.
you don't think they're wrong.
Your
you think
viewers,
what
what
Hamas
you do.
did
By the way,
was perfectly
the head
justified.
of Press TV,
I've got to leave it there.
The head of Press TV
I've got to leave it there.
has said that you can have a live debate with me
Let's
in
do it.
Iran
Let's do
on
it.
Press TV.
Let's
a
do it.
live debate.
Let's do it.
whenever you like. So come to Iran.
No,
we'll
I'm not
go
coming
the
to
studio.
Iran.
You can visit
come
the
to
country
London.
and see how awful
You
it
come
is.
to London and sit in this studio, and we'll do it. Done. Deal.
Professor
Mirandi, I'm going to leave it there.
I've been to London.
I'll leave it there
I've
for
been
now.
to London. You've
but
never been to Iran.
I
You talk
appreciate
about
you.
Iran, but
I
you've never
appreciate
seen
you
it.
coming on Uncensored. If you want to come and have the balls to fly over here and sit right
You are
here opposite
cowardly,
me,
Piers.
you do it,
You're
and we'll
afraid.
air it. Uncensored.
Let's get into what actually happened here, because several things in that interview deserve more scrutiny than they got. Start with the fake ceasefire announcement, because this is the most important thing, and it is being drastically underreported. Trump posted that America and Iran had been having very good and productive conversations toward a complete resolution of hostilities. Iran's official response was unambiguous. No talks, no conversations, nothing. And here is the detail that every financial journalist in America should be demanding answers about right now. Trump posted that announcement approximately 1 hour before American markets opened on Monday morning. The 5-day pause, he announced, the window during which strikes on power plants would supposedly be postponed, ended right after markets closed on Friday. That timeline is not a coincidence. That is a market open to market close window wrapped around a fictional diplomatic breakthrough that the other party flatly denied ever happened. If any private citizen made a public statement timed precisely to move financial markets that they knew to be false, they would be facing securities fraud investigation. So the President of the United States did it on a global platform using the fear of 92 million Iranian civilians and rising American energy prices as the instrument, and the financial press covered the market rally without once asking why Iran was simultaneously denying every word of his post that silences its own story. Now, the energy infrastructure red line, and here Piers Morgan actually got something substantively right that deserves acknowledgement. Attacking power plants and desalination infrastructure is not a standard military escalation. The Gulf states have no natural freshwater sources, and their entire populations depend on desalination plants for drinking water. So if those plants go offline, whether through American strikes on Iranian power infrastructure triggering Iranian retaliation against Gulf desalination systems, you're looking at millions of people losing access to water within days, not weeks, days. That is not a hypothetical threat designed for leverage. That is applied geography. And it is why that red line existed in the first place. The fact that it has already been partially crossed, Israel attacked an Iranian facility, Iran struck a Qatari refinery, means the margin for miscalculation is shrinking in real time. The nuclear argument Piers raised deserves honest engagement rather than dismissal. The claim that Iran had been rapidly rebuilding nuclear enrichment capacity is not purely Western propaganda. The International Atomic Energy Agency has documented Iran's uranium enrichment levels reaching 60% purity, below weapons grade of 90%, but significantly above the 3.67% limit set by the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The nuclear deal that the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew from in 2018, that withdrawal, a documented policy decision made by the first Trump administration, removed the inspection framework that was monitoring Iranian compliance. You cannot dismantle the verification system, watch the country respond by expanding enrichment, and then present the enrichment as unprovoked aggression. The sequence matters. The documented sequence is withdrawal first, expansion second. The Hamas condemnation exchange is the one that generates the most heat and the least light in these conversations, so it deserves precise handling. Mirandi's refusal to condemn October 7th using the French resistance framework is a position that many people will find genuinely objectionable, and that reaction is legitimate. The killing of civilians at a music festival, the kidnapping of elderly people and children, the murder of Holocaust survivors. These acts caused real documented suffering to real human beings, and the pain of those families is not diminished by any geopolitical context. That needs to be said clearly. And simultaneously, the framework Piers used to demand the condemnation, while simultaneously being unwilling to unequivocally condemn decades of documented Israeli settlement expansion, the blockade of Gaza, or the verified civilian death toll that international human rights organizations have documented. That asymmetry is also real, demanding moral clarity from one side of a conflict while extending indefinite understanding to the other is not journalism. It is a hierarchy of whose suffering requires condemnation and whose requires context, and both can be true simultaneously. Civilian deaths on October 7th were wrong. The documented killing of over 45,000 people in Gaza, according to figures cited by the United Nations, is also wrong. Moral consistency requires saying both out loud with equal force. The media control exchange at the end of the interview is where things got genuinely revealing. Not because Mirandi's insinuations were specific or provable, but because of what Piers' reaction exposed. When Mirandi implied that unnamed forces control what Piers can say on air, Piers demanded a name repeatedly. Mirandi refused to give one. That exchange went nowhere productive. But here is what is documentable and verifiable without any conspiracy framework at all. Media consolidation in the United States and United Kingdom is real and extensively studied. 6 corporations control approximately 90% of American media. The financial interests of those corporations, their advertising relationships, their corporate ownership structures, their board compositions are matters of public record. You do not need unnamed controllers to explain why certain conversations get ended early and certain questions never get asked. The economic incentives of institutional media are sufficient explanation, and they are fully documentable without a single conspiracy theory. Here is where we land. Trump manufactured a fictional diplomatic announcement timed to American market hours using a war as the instrument that deserves a congressional inquiry. The energy infrastructure red line is real. The consequences of crossing it fully are catastrophic, and the margin for miscalculation is dangerously narrow. The nuclear timeline requires the withdrawal of the 2015 deal to be part of every conversation about Iranian enrichment, and the Hamas condemnation framework only has integrity if it is applied with equal force to every party, causing documented civilian deaths in this conflict. That is the full picture. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below.